Joining me this time around for the journey is Rosie Spicer. Welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me.
Now, I know that you're just doing your thing, but it's quite an impressive thing that you do. I'll explain it the best I can, but you're an Ultraman triathlete, which
right.
means extreme exercise when I think of hearing that phrase. But before we get too much further into that and how you keep going when you're on a big course and things like that, let's talk a little bit about your ties to the area. So where do you live? How have you ended up living here?
Well, in 1973, we used to live in Melbourne, my parents, and Dad sort of thought that I was 15 and that I was heading in the wrong direction, that perhaps better take me to the country, get me away from the bad influences. So he decided to buy a caravan park in Bright, and I moved up there thinking I'd come to the end of the world. It was just this quiet little country town. But over the years, my parents left, my brothers left, and I stayed, and I've been in the Bright area since 1973. And I'm grateful because it's such a great place to grow up and a great place to live, and it's has all the mountains, the fresh air. It has got a wee bit too busy now with more people coming in. But I ended up working in a little shop up there. I was 15. And I did what normal teenagers did, smoked and drank and did all the wrong things. I ended up getting married and having 2 children, and that marriage kind of fell apart after 11 years, but I stayed. And then over the next few years, I worked and supported myself and my children. I had 3 jobs for a long time. And then I met Trout, my partner. He's 12 years younger than I am. So, yeah, I'm a cougar. And we ended up sort of like coming together. He was 21. I had to wait till he was legal. And then we got together and sort of got into racing, like running and swimming, more so he. And I sort of supported him. And then when I got to about 45, both my parents had died. Mum had died a few years earlier and Dad had died. He'd just turned 70, and both of them had been smokers. So I just thought, no, it's nuts. I've got to give up. I want to live. My granddaughters had just been born. They were twins, and I wanted to see them grow up. So I decided that was it, give up the cigarettes. But I was also concerned about putting on weight and, becoming yuck. So I started running. And one thing led to another, and I ended up doing triathlons.
You've summarised it so beautifully to start with, but this is where we're going to head on the journey now.
Okay, sorry.
Let's talk about, you mentioned you had 3 jobs in there. What 3 jobs were you doing to keep a roof over the heads of your children?
One of them, you'll probably laugh, but part of the settlement when I separated from my husband, he got the land and I got what we called the septic tank business. So I drove a truck and drove around people's places and emptied out their septic tanks. And I did that for 13 years. I also worked in an ice cream shop at 6 o'clock in the evenings, tidying up and whatever. And I also worked in a motel, making beds during the day. So my children used to follow me and they'd go, where are we going now? And they'd be either in the truck or they'd be in the motel room following me, handing out the coffees and towels. And so I just, for probably 12, 13 years, I had those 3 jobs to put my children through school and so they didn't miss out.
So you think of yourself from when you were a child yourself coming into a place like Bright and a small sort of population, a little bit isolated really from major population centres, conveniently accessible to us all now. We love going to Bright.
Yep.
But you found yourself single mum, working 3 jobs. Did you ever find yourself wondering where you'd get to next?
Well, I guess living in Bright with the children was kind of secure. I knew everybody, and my kids could just walk up the street any time of day. I knew that they were okay. So I had no intentions of really leaving the area. It was like this giant family, this sort of small community. I just liked living there.
And did what you had to do.
Yep. And also work, always had work. People would always be offering me work. So once you're local, you sort of get to know people. And
so paint a picture of that work ethic in terms of quite a vast difference between those jobs, like ice cream and septic tanks.
Yeah. Oh, look, septic tanks, that was a classic. My Trout's father, actually, I worked for him in a motel over there, and I had this truck sitting there. I didn't know what to do with it, and he said, "Oh, my grease trap needs pumping." He said, "Let's go and get the truck." So we did, and with trying to work out how the suction worked and all this worked and cleaning it all up. And he said, we could go out and pump out a few septic tanks and make some money. So we'd turn up at people's places and, we're here to pump the septic tank out. And we had no idea what we were doing. But in the end, we'd sort of get it all cleaned out and then we'd have to go and dump the sewage. And we had a lot of fun. We took it out to a place called Poo Corner out at Freeburg. It was literally what it was called, Poo Corner. And the Shire had dug great big troughs about the size of semi-trailers, and we would back the truck up, and the truck was a tipper, so we could sort of angle it up, and the sewage would all fall, sort of fill up these things. They grew the best tomatoes out there. And so I did that, and in the end sometimes Lindsay couldn't come, so I'd go out on my own, and I had these shorts, shorty shorts. I always made sure I looked nice, never, tough or whatever. And I'd pull up at a place and they go, "Where's the man? Is he going to help you?" And I'd say, "No, it's just me." And like at the end of it all, they'd be like patting me on the back. "Wow, that's amazing. That's fantastic." So that sort of bit of money, plus working in the hotels and working in the motels and working in the ice cream shop. I worked 7 days a week, and sometimes it was early mornings till late at night. Mm. And it wasn't a big pay then, it was, pretty sort of small. But I was able to get my kids on school trips, skiing, their clothes, able to pay rent, run my car. We never had a cupboard full of food or anything, but, I managed to bring those kids up. And I don't think I spoiled them. So I did well with them. They're great. They're my best friends. Both my kids. So,
touching on the smoking component.
Oh, yeah, that was terrible. That was probably my biggest thing, yeah.
Did your kids smoke?
No, thankfully. I grew up smoking. My parents were heavy smokers, so I pretty much was born smoking. Parents had a milk bar in Melbourne, and cigarettes were very accessible. And it was just, everybody smoked. Like if you weren't a teenager if you didn't smoke. And like I would stress if I only had 3 cigarettes left at the end of the day, I'd be thinking, "Oh my God, I've got to wait till the morning to get another packet." It's crazy. And like packet of cigarettes then I remember when they got to $1, got to give them up, it's too expensive. What are they worth now, $50 odd? So yeah, when my both parents are gone, that's when I decided to stop.
Yeah. So you're worried about weight gain.
Oh yeah.
If you stopped,
that was one of the reasons I smoked, and I think a lot of women do too. Is just instead of grabbing something to eat, you grab a cigarette.
Yeah.
Like it was always that worry that you put on that unnecessary weight.
Yeah, you'd balloon out from the sugary sweets. And
I gave up both times when I was pregnant.
Yeah.
But I got fat then anyway, which is normal. And I had tried, acupuncture and different things, and I did see myself balloon. So I decided that, I don't want to stop smoking for that reason.
So you found the love for running?
Well, I had a bladder prolapse after having 2 children, and I couldn't run without being wet. And I can say that because it happens to a lot of people. So I used to run around the outside of our property, out of the house, and I had 7 laps was a kilometre. And it was fine because no one could see me, so I started to run that way. And I remember doing, 3 or 4 Ks. Eventually I felt really good, but I thought I've got to do something. So I went and had an operation here in Albury and had that repaired. And it was like, oh, wow, I can run without the issue.
Yeah.
And so, I started to run. And I would only run really early in the morning before anyone got up because, I was just a jogger. I wasn't much. I was a bit embarrassed. I couldn't swim either at all. So I went down to Melbourne to learn how to swim. And I paid $500 for a weekend course. Learned to blow bubbles in the water. Had no idea you did that. I was 45. And riding a man's bike, it was just insane to ride with a little tiny seat, a bar, it seemed impossible. I remember riding 3 kilometres one time and thought, no, that's it. I'm not doing this. It's just too hard. But, I persevered.
So let's talk about the distances in the Ultraman triathlon. So when you go in one of those events, what is it that to paint the picture for people that aren't familiar, what is it that you're swimming, running and riding?
Well, the day starts off with a 10-kilometre swim, and you have a paddler with you, and that paddler brings all your drinks and whatever else you might need. In my case, I asked them to bring Listerine because I don't like the salt so much, and it was making me feel ill. So I'd swill Listerine. And then after you get out of the water, you change into your bike gear and you ride 150 kilometres. And then you have 12 hours to complete that. And then the next day, you start again early in the morning and ride 280 kilometres. And this isn't just flat roads. This is hills of Noosa, which are wicked. And again, you have 12 hours to finish it in, and I did it in 10. And then the next day, you start early in the morning and you run 84 kilometres. So in Noosa, it was to Maroochydore and back along the coast. And again, very hilly. And fortunately, it wasn't too hot a day. So,
a lot of people aspire to run maybe a half marathon in their life or even just do a 10-kilometre fun run.
Yeah.
And anybody who's tried that, which I have, you at times your mind escapes, like it goes somewhere else. You don't know, you sort of, the time escapes, you lose track of kilometres, and then next thing you're at the finish line.
Yes.
I'm sure anyone else that might be listening or watching and may have tried these sort of feats themselves before wouldn't be able to get their head around, like I can't, around you and your body doing that extraordinary thing for so long across multiple days.
Well, and especially at my age, I suppose. I'll be 63 next month. The thing is, like, often people sort of say, what do you think about it or whatever, but there's no time to think. Like, especially in the run, for instance, the coach has me running 13.5 minutes, walk a minute and a half. And so you're constantly looking forward to that 1.5 minute. But in the meantime, you're thinking about your posture, you're considering whether you need to drink something or have a gel. You have a partner that runs alongside you, so they're kind of keeping you occupied by talking and whatever. And you just sort of like plod along with those thoughts with, thinking of where's that minute and a half, occasionally you say, is my time ready yet? And they go, no, not yet. So you don't really think about things until you get towards the end. And that's when I started thinking, just another 10 minutes and I'll be finished. Another 10 minutes. And then, running up the beach, like they make you run up the beach. And then you get to the finish line and all that weariness and all that fatigue that you've just carried for the last, X amount of kilometres goes. Because there's, the excitement of going through that finish line and thinking to yourself, wow, I've done this, I've really done this, and there's probably only a handful of people in the world that could do this. So I feel privileged, I feel honoured, I feel pretty proud of myself to actually have achieved it, and in good time. So,
what's the training look like?
Well, that's huge. Actually, the race day is easy. It's like when you do Ironman, that's all catered for. It's great. You have a nice day out. But, training is like when we get serious, I'm up at 3 every morning. This morning I slept in 5 and did 2-hour bike ride before I came here. But, it's 3 o'clock in the morning and I could run half marathon before work, sometimes 30 Ks before work. We have an endless pool, so we get out there and swim. It could be 2 degrees outside and we're in the pool swimming and swim for about an hour. It's like swimming in the Murray, with that heavy current. And bike riding, well, until my wombat accident, I used to always be outside riding with the lights and everything else. But now we have a wind trainer, a very good setup, the Swift, and my coach sends me the program and tells me what effort I've got to do and, power and everything. And I watch TV at the same time. It's great. And we've got fans and everything.
Let's talk about the wombat incident now. I sort of already know about the wombat incident. But,
that was really bad.
Let's talk about that.
We had just a few days before we were leaving to go to Port Macquarie to race. And so we thought we'd just go out the Buckland and spin the legs and just take it easy. And there's one section there near the dairy farm and it comes up over the hill and you can pick up quite a bit of speed going down there. And it was sort of, morning where the light wasn't quite light enough, but it wasn't dark. It was sort of that in-between time. So the torch lights really didn't show anything. And Trout was in front of me and next to me he said, "Rose, watch the wombat." Bang. So I went straight up over the handlebars going down the hill and I probably was doing about 35 Ks an hour and hit my head, shoulder was all mangled up. I punctured my lung, broke 3 ribs and did a few other things, cuts and bruises and so forth. And I was drowning in my fluid from my lungs. And the ambulance came. I was so lucky because that area there has no reception, and yet Trout was actually able to call an ambulance. A lady who lives up the road from the dairy farm, she's a nurse, and she was coming to work, and Trout just pulled me off the road, otherwise she would have hit me coming over the hill. Anyway, she stopped, went back and got blankets, and we waited for the ambulance to come, and they airlifted me to the Alfred Hospital from Poulton airstrip by helicopter. And I remember getting into the hospital and the guy had a tube with a blade, and without any anaesthetic or anything, he just went straight into my ribs, and it was like being stabbed. But they had to do that to drain the fluid. So I was in intensive care for a few days, and then because of the bad concussion I had, I went to the Royal Talbot and spent a long time there. And then eventually came home, and I never stopped doing something, even though I was arm in a sling and I couldn't drive, couldn't watch TV, everything, because my head was so bad. And I used to have some of the friends around town would come and hold my hand and walk me in the mornings for a walk. And I would go to the pool and walk around in the pool, so if I fell over, it didn't matter. And that took 8 months of rehab. And eventually I was allowed to go back to work and with a buddy and a couple of hours a day until eventually I was good enough to start back full time again. So it was a process of probably 10 months. So I left home in the morning and didn't really go back for another couple of months.
And what was it like getting back on the bike for the first time after that?
It was really weird because the first ride we had was up the Buckland, and you could still see the blood stain from me on the road. Even after all that time, it was sort of quite a lot of blood. It felt pretty scary, especially coming down, but I got over it. I just sort of, you got to do it.
Well, humans are pretty amazing things, and you act so very blasé as we have this conversation because, it's just obviously part of your story, part of your fabric. But what is it that you think gets you back doing something, even though you've almost been conquered by it?
Never give up. It's kind of a motto that I carry. I did paragliding. I was absolutely terrified. But I forced myself to do it. Terrified of heights. I did abseiling, terrified of that. I've driven hot rod cars, terrified of that, did that. It just, for me, it's like, I remember once going down into a cave in South Australia, and you had to go around a corner, and Dan, you would have seen this beautiful big opening, and I panicked halfway down those steps and I ran out. And when people come out, oh, that was beautiful down there, it was so amazing, Rara, and I thought, oh, why did I not go down there? So I have this attitude now, not do it. You know, take that step, go and have a look or jump or whatever. Never give up. And the same when I'm racing too, you know, you feel pretty average sometimes, but you don't want to stop. I did a race in Hawaii, and I was coming 8th in my age group. I was doing really well in the Ironman. And at 21 k's into the run, my back went. I was in so much pain, I couldn't stand up. So I ran, you know, bent over. And paramedics tried to help. Trout was there and he was trying to help massage my back. There was absolutely nothing I could do. I could not straighten. So I ran the next 20 k's like that. And it was pouring rain. And, you know, people were going, oh, you're mad. You know, you're going to, you know, how could you do this? And I said, because I can't not do it. I can't not finish. So I ran through the finishing chute, bent over like a little old lady, and I got to the finish line. And normally when I get to the finish line, I do a dance for my granddaughters. There's no way I could stand up and do that dance, but I got over the finish line. And I ended up in 12th place, so I was a bit disappointed that I'd lost those places, but I finished.
So, out of a necessity to hopefully not put on weight, to give up smoking, for a healthier grandmother, to be a healthier grandmother, you've taken up really an extreme sport.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's a bit weird, isn't it? I mean, I could be just walking or something. Yeah.
Have you given any thought to what happens when you can't do the ultra distances anymore?
I'm not sure. We've got an adventure next year where we're going to ride from the Gulf to the Gulf. It's a sort of an organised trip. But I'm really excited about actually riding all the way through, like where Human Hovel went. Yeah, so I can't see I can do this much longer, but I'd like to hope my world record stays there. If someone does challenge it, I better go back and have another go.
Yeah.
I'd still like to do the Ironman. I've been able to be number 1 in Australia 4 times in my age group. And yeah, I know, while the passion's still there, while I'm still fit and healthy, I think I'll just take every year as it comes and hopefully I can do something.
So your world record?
Yeah, that's cool.
What's the world record?
Wow, I did my race in 30 hours and 25 minutes. And prior to that, the world record of my age group for Ultraman was 33 hours. So I smashed it by 2.5 hours.
Almost 10%.
Yeah, I know. I was just stunned. A lady in Florida this year had actually claimed the world record, and I beat her. Poor lady. So
have you spoken to her or met her?
No, I have actually thought about writing to her, and I've written to the Guinness Book of Records too, hoping that maybe I can get in that.
You'll be recognised.
But yeah, who would have thought, from someone who used to smoke, party, and to actually be this other end of the scale. It's kind of odd.
Yeah. So we often talk about when people aren't working, and you've already just given us such a great picture of your life already, but what do you do with spare time? Which I'd imagine...
Housework. Seriously,
as romantic as that sounds, it's probably a fairly sensible response.
Oh, look, this Trout and I, we get up on a Saturday morning when we're in full training, say at 3 o'clock, and I might have ridden 160 or 170 k's up through Hotham and Buffalo and whatever, and then get home. And you generally have to do a run after that. And so we have breakfast probably about 2 in the afternoon, and then we both put on our headphones, and I vacuum one end of the house and he vacuums the other. And then I'll mop and we're both singing away with our headphones on. And then we'll have an early dinner, probably 5:30, 6, and we're in bed by 7:30.
Ready for the early morning grind again.
Yeah. Very romantic.
It is. Who do you admire?
I read Michelle Obama's book the other day. Wow, that lady is just amazing. Just the things you never hear that she does, I think, helping underprivileged people, trying to sort of motivate people into sort of becoming, like good people, like do the right thing. Another one, obviously, is Nelson Mandela. Wow. But my son, I think my son I admire, along with Trout and my daughter. But my son had a dream, a goal, and he worked so hard for the first 10 years. He lived in China, and he developed a company making, the scooters. Yeah. Am I allowed to say which ones?
Yeah, go.
Envy scooters. And he was part of the BMX crowd. He was the CEO of BMX Freestyle Australia. And then he saw scooters becoming quite a phenomenon, and so he thought rather than the ones that break all the time, he'd make something strong and sturdy. And 10 years on, he now is like this multi-millionaire living in America. Although looking at him, you'd never think it. He still wears his pants down here and black cap and black T-shirts. But he's got a heart of gold. But, he's worked so hard, and he had this dream to make these scooters, and he sacrificed so much, and now he's on top of the world. And I admire him because he never gave up. Again, never gave up. He persevered. He lived on, he was going around the back of restaurants and asking if you had any throwaways to eat food while he lived in Melbourne. He had a couple of other people living in the same house. He lived on nothing. He worked hard. He took himself to school when he was 20 to learn to read and write. He left school illiterate. And from there, he just blossomed. So, I hold him in very high esteem.
So there's something new that I've learnt in this very journey. So he was born and bred in Bright, is that?
Yeah.
And now he's
BMX kid. He was Northeast #1 for a long time.
I know you're separated at the moment, like everybody with COVID.
Yeah. When
he's next back in the country, we'll sit him here in this same chair and have a chat to him.
You would love listening to him. He is so awesome. You can actually Google Rosie Spicer. He's hilarious, and he's... he donates so much of his money to great causes. He'll put some kid that he's just met through school, put them through college. When he goes to China, he's one of these people that collects heaps of change, and he'll go down to the sort of like a girls' orphanage in China, and he'll just upend all the coins when he's there in China he's there sometimes for 3 or 4 months, make sure the factory works and all that. And, he'll just donate all that money to them. Doesn't think anything of it. He's such a good soul. And so is my daughter.
Stay tuned. We'll get that journey as well.
Okay.
So you've mentioned, not giving up. We like to talk to our people on the journey about great quotes or mantras or philosophies. You've sort of already mentioned that's one that you've sort of learnt from that cave moment. Are there any other really good sort of quotes that you see and you go, yeah, that's me?
My mother. My mum used to always say, "You'll mind your own bloody business." And that's so true. You should always mind your own business. Mind you, she'd always go and see what was going on. But, she was a classic. But I think, there's something I made up, which was, if all the world could think like me, what a wonderful world this would be. And I sort of think that, and it doesn't apply just to what I'm thinking. If you said that, that's what you would be hoping, that the world would think like you and anyone else. So, it would be nice.
I love it. Sliding door moments in life? We've had choices, forks in the roads.
Yeah, I guess Wombat one was one, but there was a time when I just learned to swim. I was so scared of swimming, really, really scared. I would only go in the pool to my waist, and I would stay on the edge.
Yeah.
And if anyone came near me, I would be terrified. and let alone going into the ocean. That was another thing. And we were doing my first real race in Elwood Beach in Melbourne, and we went the day before, and my partner Trout is just so good. He's just so patient. I don't know how he can be, but he's just so great with me. And I couldn't put my face in the water. For 3 hours, he persevered. He was kind. He never sort of cracked it with me. And I had to sort of, I couldn't leave my face in the water. I was just scared. Anyway, eventually I did, obviously. And as he says, if I hadn't have put my face in the water and started swimming that day, I probably would never have done triathlons. Because I wouldn't have jumped that hurdle and got over that fear. So I guess, yeah, that's an opening door
And
moment.
did you have it as a known fear? Like, or was it just something once you're in that circumstance, that situation, you could never overcome
Well,
it?
because I never learnt to swim,
Yeah.
and, you know, like the ocean, I used to love playing it when I was a kid, but, yeah, I could never swim it because the waves would make you swallow water, and it was just unnatural, and plus critters. You know, like there are things in there that could bite you. You know, big sharks. You know, they all come around that deep water.
I need to introduce my wife to you. She's useless. You go on a nice tropical holiday and you go, let's go snorkeling, and she won't go anywhere near the concept of snorkeling.
I did that in Hawaii. It is brilliant. Now I got over that fear too.
What's the best thing that's ever happened to you in life, do you think?
Well, obviously my children. You know, they're a big part of my life growing up. But Trout, my partner, we've been together for 30 years. And, yeah, he's just my soulmate, my best friend. He does all the housework. He's awesome. He's a great cook. He just makes life easy for me. You know, I'm so grateful. Sometimes I wish he wouldn't because I don't know how to do stuff, but he's there. He just takes up the slack. He's really great.
It takes two, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, especially when we're vacuum cleaning.
Yeah. Did you always plan to be where you are now and doing what you're doing? If you sort of go back in time, what were you hoping was going to be where you'd be in, 10, 20, 30 years down the track? What were you hoping or aspiring to do?
You know, I really had no dream. Both my brothers are very successful. Like Jared, my brother, he's a sign writer in Border Sign Studios. My other brother lives in Marimbula. He's a very successful cabinet maker. And I had nothing. I really didn't know what my thing was. And then when my mother died, I decided that aged care was something I'd like to do. So I stepped into Hawthorn Village, and they offered me a job as an activities person there. I've been there 23 years, and I love every single day. Some of my best friends are 90 plus, and I think if I'd known that I was going into aged care 30 years ago, I would have gone, no, I couldn't do that. But I am so grateful that that's where my life went, because every day is a reward. I can make people laugh and smile, and I love cuddling, and I know that as I said, some of my best friends are 90 plus.
That's great.
And they're my biggest supporters too.
Yeah, they would be.
I got back from my race, and they'd filled up my whole office with gold balloons. They'd made a whopping great big card with everyone signed it, well wished me, and it was so special.
Fantastic. So if we think ahead to the next part of your life, the 5 to 10 years, if we're going to try to write that now, what would we be writing in there, do you think?
Well, I'd like to know how to get rid of wrinkles. I guess just, hoping that Trout and I always have adventures, because I think you need something to look forward to. You need goals. You need... like we can't leave the country at the moment, so perhaps exploring more of Australia would be good, and by bike. I'd like to do the Blue Mountains, the trail walk, things like that. It'd be fun. Something that always thought, couldn't be bothered or too hard. And now I think we should, before it is too hard.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
And it's probably easier than running
Yeah, a lot less taxing on the bones.
It's probably just it literally is a walk in the park.
Literally, yeah.
To go across Summits.
Yeah.
Now, 2020 and even still now in 2021, pretty tough times.
Yeah, aren't they?
If we had, I think everyone would wish they had their grandparents or great-grandparents still around to be able to ask the questions of, what did you do? How do I get through this? We sort of don't have that documented, any of us really, do we?
No.
Otherwise, we'd be not trying to find our way through it.
That's very true.
What's it taught you?
How much I hate masks.
Yes.
Oh, my God, especially when you're wearing glasses. It fogs up. I think it's made me realise that how important your health is, and how important your family is too, because if you can't see them, you realise how much more you miss them. We'd sort of kind of take, like I said, my son, I take it for granted I could just jump on the plane to see him, but now I can't. I must say I'm so grateful for social media though. If Facebook or Messenger wasn't around, I doubt I'd ever hear from him, because I'm sure he wouldn't write letters. And telephones are, like a bit too hard. So I'm grateful that I am in contact with him nearly every day. As with, I guess, most people can do that still, Skype and everything else. At least we have that. And I guess we see the value of that more now, because we can't just have that accessibility of catching up with family and friends. So it's hard for everyone.
Has it changed your values, or has it reinforced ones you already had?
I think it's reinforced them. It's made me love more, as in everything I've got. It's made me realise how lucky I am. There's an awful lot of unlucky people out in the world. And I've got a job, and I love my job, and I love where I live. It's a beautiful area. So I think knowing that more so now because of COVID, not just, I live in Bright, but I am grateful I live in Bright.
As you said earlier on, there's a lot of people that like to get into Bright on a weekend and holiday periods, and you're there. You're lucky.
Yeah, very, very fortunate.
Has your normal changed? The new normal? Does it look different for you? Or
no, I think
running out on roads remotely without people.
I think we're pretty much okay up here. If it was the city, it's terribly different. But not much has changed except that it's quieter. It's probably a good thing.
So I know we can sit here for hours, Rosie, because you are just so blasé about your achievements, and even that of your son.
Thank you.
It's really refreshing to speak to someone who clearly values what they've earned in life and what work it's taken, and even just taking life as it comes and seeing where it takes you. It's very refreshing to hear. So as we sort of wrap up, an oldie but a goodie, you can invite 3 people to a dinner party. Mm-hmm. Alive or dead, your choice, but who would you have at the dinner party with you?
Do you know Trevor Noah? He's an American, he's actually a South African, now American comedian.
Okay.
He has a podcast show called The Night Show or something. Very, very funny man, but great values. Love the way he speaks and the way he talks about. He has good values, and he's grown up, throwing a brick around was a toy for him. He's one of the richest men in America now, but he's down to earth. He's normal. He's one I'd definitely like to have. I think I said before about Nelson Mandela, because of he never gave up. He always thought better of people, and when he finally came out and became president, he showed everybody that you can achieve something if you really set your heart to it and you set your mind to it. He went through crap, and most people who go through crap just give up, but he didn't, and he he's a role model for something that like people who should sort of strive and bring people together, and the other one, probably my dad. I miss my dad.
Yeah,
I'd like to have him for dinner.
Yeah.
Although he used to chop everything up to pieces, and I cooked him a roast one day, and it was all laid out in a plate, and he proceeds to chop it all up and mash it all up. And I said, God, I spent hours cooking all that. And he goes, why? What? I said, can't you enjoy just one little bit at a time? He said, well, it's all tastes the same. You know? I think that was his own mother's cooking. You put all the good stuff with the bad stuff and you cover it all up. Yeah.
Make it palatable.
Yeah.
Sweet or savoury while you're sitting at the dinner table?
Definitely a savoury.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I could eat tons of savoury stuff. I don't mind sweet either, but, yeah, I love munching on, like, nuts that have got, the stuff on them, and, yeah. Too much, really.
Well,
yeah.
It's okay while you're running and cycling and all the rest as much as you are. You might
I know.
You've got
to keep it in mind, though. Like, a lot of people say, oh, have that muffin, you can run it off. But then I've got to run further.
And we know you're pretty committed with your training and what have you. We've discovered that. But plans on a weekend. When you get to the weekend, you've spoken about working 7 days a week, and you clearly are a very motivated person. But do you sort of look forward to a couple of days of rolling back a bit, or?
The only time I have off resting is after a race.
Yeah.
That I look forward to because you get to sleep in.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. But, yeah, no, look, every weekend's pretty much planned. 8 hours of training Saturday and 8 hours on Sunday and 5 hours on Monday. Yeah, it's pretty full on. But it's my choice and I love it, and it's what we do together. And I often think that when couples do things together, that's what bonds them together.
Yeah.
Like you don't grow apart that way.
Rosie Spicer, thank you
me.
so much for joining us for the journey. Ultraman triathlete, world record holder. There's so many titles we could put beside your name now that we've spoken for a period of time. But all the best, and don't give up. I really appreciate you spending some time with us.
Thank you. I loved every minute of it. Thank you.